All right. So today we're going to kind of dive into something that I think is like super relevant to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're talking about the attention economy.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? Like when I say that, because like you think about just the sheer amount of stuff
Right.
that is like vying for our attention on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Like just the amount of information,
Yeah.
like the volume of entertainment options,
Right.
all that kind of stuff.
It is truly an age of abundance, isn't it?
It is an age of abundance. And so,
Yeah.
if we're living in this age of abundance,
Yeah.
then what is actually scarce?
Well, that's exactly it. We are all given the same 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're all feeling that crunch, that time crunch even more.
Oh, absolutely.
With all of the demands and all of the content and the things that are coming at us.
Right. And you, as the listener right now, you are making choices.
Yes.
Every single minute of every single day.
Right.
About where you're going to put your attention.
About what you're going to give your attention to.
Right. And so I think that's like a really fascinating thing to consider, is that like, this limited attention that we all have is in a way like a huge driver of like the economy.
For sure.
Like when you watch a YouTube video and you have to watch an ad beforehand, or you're scrolling through your Facebook feed and you see a sponsored post, or you're at the movie theater and you have to watch previews,
like trailer,
that you didn't necessarily opt into.
Absolutely.
Your attention in a very real way is like fueling those platforms, those industries.
That's right.
It's a form of contribution that we're often making without even really thinking about it.
Yeah, without direct compensation.
Right.
Yeah.
So like our attention, which is this like finite and valuable resource, is like fueling these massive industries.
Yeah.
Often in exchange for like fleeting entertainment or, persuasive messages.
That's right.
And so I think that this inherent imbalance is like one of the like core tensions of what we call the attention economy.
Absolutely. And it's a fascinating dynamic because we have this incredibly valuable asset, right? Our focus, our mental space, our time.
Yeah.
And yet we give it away so readily.
Right.
And the advertising world is built entirely on this. Like their whole game is how do we capture and hold your attention, even for a fleeting moment, using whatever tools are at our disposal.
Right.
Clever visuals, compelling stories.
Yeah. And they're constantly innovating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To live in the game.
To do that, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, let's break this down a little bit more.
Okay.
So you've got these advertising agencies, and they're basically like capturing our attention.
Bundling it up and then selling it to businesses
and the middlemen
who want to connect with us, right? So it's almost like our attention is this like commodity that's being traded. And so this leads to this like kind of fundamental question of like, is this a sustainable model long term?
Yeah. Is it equitable?
Right. Is it really equitable that like what might be like our most valuable resource is being exchanged for like very little direct return?
Yeah. There's a growing feeling that it's not quite a level playing field, right?
Yeah.
And, we are starting to see hints of a potential shift.
Okay.
And just imagine a future where you actually get paid for your attention. Okay. Now, that might sound a little odd.
Yeah, it does sound a little.
But think about it, like just on a basic level, getting paid to watch an ad.
Okay.
In fact, current advertising rates suggest that your attention is valued at something like $2 to $3 an hour.
Wow.
Even though you don't see that money directly.
Right.
So I guess the question is, does that valuation truly reflect the worth of your time?
Time and focus.
Right. Because like in a way, like we're already seeing the beginnings of this shift. Like with the rise of influencers. Like companies are increasingly choosing to sidestep like traditional advertising and just directly compensating individuals, influencers for their attention and for sharing products or brands.
Sharing that attention with their followers.
All right, exactly. And so like, in a way, this is like, we're seeing this inherent value of attention being recognized.
Yes.
And so perhaps like one early manifestation of this shift in power is like this rise of influencers.
Absolutely.
So if we connect that to the bigger picture.
Like influencers kind of represent this form of like decentralized advertising.
Right.
Right. Like the money isn't flowing through these like traditional advertising giants.
Right, exactly.
It's going directly
to the consumer.
To the consumers.
To the people who have influence.
Mm-hmm. And an audience.
That's right.
So it's like they're being compensated for their attention.
Mm-hmm.
And their ability to like direct
the attention of others.
The attention of others, right? Yeah. So like, what if this trend of like decentralization extended even further to like impact like everyday individuals?
Yeah.
Like imagine a future where you or I could like run ads.
Right.
Maybe even ads that we didn't create.
Okay.
And potentially earn like a little bit of revenue.
Yeah.
If other people like engaged with them.
That's interesting.
I mean, it might sound a little futuristic.
Yeah, it does.
But think about like Google AdSense.
Oh, yeah?
Like that was kind of like an early...
Yeah, like an early prototype almost.
Yeah, like an early prototype, but like a very limited example of this idea, right?
Yeah, and I think what's fascinating to consider is like building on that and expanding on that.
Okay.
So like with Google AdSense, you could host ads on your blog or your website.
Right.
And earn from clicks, but you didn't really have a lot of control.
Right. You're just
over what those ads were.
Like at the whim of the algorithm.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so think about like the next iteration of that.
Okay.
Where individuals have much more agency.
Okay.
So picture like curating advertisements that you find genuinely interesting or useful.
Okay.
And you earn revenue when other people interact with them.
So it's almost like this like crowdsourced advertising ecosystem where like you become a curator of attention.
Exactly.
Right. And you're like deciding which messages you want to amplify.
And you get compensated for it.
Right. And so this could not only potentially compensate individuals for their attention, but it could also give us like much more say.
Much more control.
In the kinds of ads that we see.
Absolutely.
You know, and so I think that's
it's a really compelling vision.
Compelling vision, right?
Yeah.
So now we've got this abundance of information.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, offering incredible possibilities.
Of course, yeah.
But it also creates like a significant hurdle in a world where attention is limited.
Right.
Right. How do you, as the listener, actually find?
Yeah, how do you sift through it all?
What's good?
What's relevant?
What's relevant to you?
What's quality?
Amidst all this noise.
What's signal versus noise?
Right, because we are seeing this like explosion of content.
Across all platforms.
Across all platforms.
More songs, more videos, more articles.
More products.
More everything than ever before.
Right. And the traditional ways that we used to discover quality are changing so dramatically.
They are, yeah.
You know, like we used to rely heavily on these traditional gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Right. Publishers, studios, record labels.
Right. The powers that be.
Who, for better or for worse, provided like a level of curation based on like their assessment of quality and market potential.
That's right.
So like these institutions, they acted as like filters, right?
Curators.
And alongside them were like, you know, traditional critics and reviewers whose opinions often influenced what we chose to consume.
Right. Tastemakers.
Right.
Right.
But, you know, with the shifts in how we consume media and like the evolution of business models.
Yep.
The influence and reach of these like traditional gatekeepers and
they've lost some of their power.
Have diminished significantly.
Yeah.
Right. And so
enter the algorithms.
Enter the algorithms.
Yeah.
Right. You see them everywhere you look online. You know, Amazon suggesting products.
Right.
Netflix recommending shows.
YouTube queuing up that next video.
YouTube queuing up the next video.
Yeah.
All of these recommendation systems are using like your past viewing.
Your past views.
Or reading habits.
Yeah.
Along with the habits of millions of other users to suggest content that they think
you'll like.
You might like.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, they can be incredibly effective.
They can be. They're good at their job.
At keeping us engaged.
Right.
Right? Like platforms like Amazon, Netflix, YouTube, they've all acknowledged that a significant portion of their success is directly attributable to the effectiveness
of their recommendation algorithms.
Of the recommendation algorithms.
Yeah, they keep us clicking.
Right.
They keep us engaged.
They keep us coming back for more.
They keep us in the ecosystem.
Right.
And I think that's part of the point.
Right, but there's a crucial point to consider here.
Yeah.
Which is that while algorithms offer convenience, right, they're very designed kind of prioritizes
what keeps you on the platform, what keeps you clicking over serendipitous discovery.
Right. So it's almost like they're narrowing our intellectual and cultural horizons.
Potentially.
Right. By like feeding us content that they think we'll like.
Right.
Based on what we've already consumed.
Exactly. And so there's a potential downside there, right?
Yeah, there's this risk of like getting stuck in a feedback loop.
In a filter bubble.
Of the familiar.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, the algorithms are good at predicting what you might like based on past behavior, but they can struggle sometimes to introduce you to genuinely novel experiences.
Right. And so that's often where, you know, your social graph comes into play. Right. And by social graph, I mean, you know, the network of connections and relationships.
The people you trust.
That we have online. You know, recommendations from friends, family, trusted contacts. They can often like cut through the noise.
They can cut through the noise.
In a way that an algorithm sometimes can't.
Absolutely, because you value the opinions of people that you know.
Right. You're like, oh, well, if they thought this was good, then I might actually like it too.
Right.
But even our social circles can become kind of like
ingrown
and homogenous over time.
Yeah, a little too much of an echo chamber.
Right. So it's like limiting the diversity of recommendations that we might receive.
Yeah, so I think what becomes crucial then is for effective attention management and discovery.
Yeah.
You have to incorporate that element of the unexpected. Things that you didn't even know you would be interested in.
Oh, that's interesting.
That element of surprise.
Yeah.
Whether it comes from a chance social interaction or, you know, a cleverly designed algorithm. That pushes you slightly outside your usual preferences.
So it's almost like breaking free.
Yeah, breaking free from the patterns.
From those predictable patterns.
You're right.
Okay, so this leads to like a really interesting shift in how we think about our attention.
Okay.
Right? Instead of just like passively consuming all this information that's vying for our focus.
Yeah, just taking it all in.
What if we actively directed our attention towards creation?
Towards making.
Towards building, towards doing.
Right. And so like engaging in the creation of things. Even if it's something as simple as like customizing a product to your own like specific needs or preferences can be like a much more fulfilling use.
It can be.
Of your limited attention. It shifts you from intake to output.
Right.
From consuming to contributing.
Simply being like a passive recipient of all this stuff.
Exactly.
Right? And so maybe like the best future of this attention economy isn't just about like, you know, the potential to get paid for our clicks.
Right.
But it's about empowering individuals to be active participants.
Creators.
In the creation of what they consume.
Of what they engage with.
Right. And maybe that leads to like a deeper level of satisfaction.
Perhaps.
Than just like endlessly scrolling through recommendations.
Right. And I think it suggests, you know, a move towards a more participatory and less purely transactional relationship with the content that we engage with.
It's about like taking ownership.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of like wrap up this deep dive into the attention economy, let's kind of like circle back.
Let's come full circle.
To that core idea.
Yeah.
Which is that.
In a world overflowing with information.
In a world overflowing with information.
Your attention is the truly precious commodity.
Your attention is the truly precious commodity.
And we've explored this current model where our attention often feels freely given, the potential for future models where individuals might be compensated, and this evolving role of both algorithmic and social curation.
Right. And it really prompts you, the listener, to consider your own relationship with your attention.
Your own attention economy.
Right. Where does your focus go each day? What value do you truly place on it? Do you feel in control of where you direct your mental energy? Or do you sometimes feel overwhelmed by the constant demand. In today's attention economy. So here's a final thought for you to consider. As the tools for creation become increasingly accessible to everyone.
Everybody's a creator now.
How might a conscious shift in our attention.
From passive consumption.
From largely passive consumption.
Active creation.
To more active creation. Reshape.
How would that reshape
not only our own sense of satisfaction.
Yeah, our own fulfillment.
But also like the very structure of the attention economy itself.
Right.
Is the future truly one where we increasingly become
co-creators.
Co-creators.
Rather than just consumers.
Yeah. It's really interesting to think about.
It is.
And I would encourage you to like take a moment to consider like the apps and platforms that you use regularly.
Yeah, the things that are eating up your attention.
And think about how their interfaces are specifically designed
to keep you there.
To capture and hold your attention.
Yeah.
And think about examples in your own life where you already see elements of attention being like directly or indirectly valued. Perhaps in ways that extend beyond traditional advertising.
Right.
Because it's a fascinating and constantly evolving landscape.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic space.
And so I think it's something that we all need to be more aware of.
For sure.
And more intentional about how we
engage
with
this new world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's
a good place to leave it.
I think that's a good place to leave it for today.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Into the attention economy.
As always.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you later.